Okay, hi. I'm back and I am going to again, talk you through the last stage of our primary hue notation for our yellows. Okay, we did the cool yellow notation above. You will see that at the end of this, I will add another last coat. And I think that's the final step in this whole thing, that I'll add another coat of my pure hue for my cool yellow, simply because I don't have the same pigment that you do on hand. So I think if you are doing this as, you have the cadmium yellow light, my guess is that you will be fine with a single coat of this yellow. Okay. Okay, let's see. So let's start this. We can kind of talk you through it. So now we have our cadmium yellow medium. Okay, and we're just we've masked off the area in the center in preparation for applying that color to the center square. Gonna put a tiniest dab of water, mix it thoroughly through the paint. I'm gonna make sure I have a good amount of paint on my brush, and then I'm going to begin the process. So you can see already that the coverage of this particular pigment, this is cadmium yellow medium, right? It's our warmer of the two yellows. The coverage is much, much, much better. So, and that's due to the nature of that pigment, the cadmium pigment being more opaque, significantly more opaque. That other pigment that I was using for the top was quite transparent. This does not have that issue. And one's not better than the other necessarily. It's just they're just different, and they have their own issues depending on how you want to use them. So again, a light touch. We're knocking down our ridges. We have good coverage, good solid coverage. We've sort of touched up all the areas on the edges. And again, we're going to wipe our brush clean. Okay. Oh, I think I take you through here. We can go a little faster through this part. Right. Okay. Now I'm getting actually I am getting ready. Right now I'm mixing our tint, our 50-50 tint. So quantity wise, 50% of your cadmium yellow medium. Again, be careful. I would recommend wearing gloves with this simply because your cadmium, pigments have cadmium in them, and it's heavy metal, and you want to limit your exposure. The greatest risk is breathing in any kind of dust, and you're not going to be sanding this, so that's not so much of an issue. But it's always a good thing to minimize skin contact. Okay. You want to, again, use the back of your brush, or sorry, the back of your palette knife. I goofed there a little bit, and you can see all that yellow on the front of my palette knife on the top. So I try to make sure to get all that integrated into the mix. Okay, mix, mix, mix. Again, smash and scrape, smash and scrape. All right, so that's mixed pretty well. I did forget to mask off that area, which I realize. So now here we're detaching it. I'm hair drying it, and then I'm masking the last bits. Okay, but don't forget to dry that the pure hue pigment. Okay, here we go. Okay, now I am painting it in, liberally covering, right? Trying to get all those edges right along the tape so that there's no white patches. But again, taking care because we don't want to have the paint, sneak under the tape either. Trying to knock down all the ridges, nice, smooth, even, opaque, non-ridgy surface, if at all possible. Okay, light touch to knock down the ridges, and we're just about done, I think, here, hopefully. Okay. Oh, maybe a little more. Okay. Oh, couldn't leave well enough alone, right? So I'm going over just another time. Knock down the ridges. Okay. Hopefully that's good. Okay. Whew. Okay. All right, good. Now, and then I'm gonna again wipe all that paint out of there. Okay, we're gonna try to get through that. Unmask it, hair dry it. Okay. And then that's this video, right? You want to dry everything, but look how nice. And, you know, again, leave that little bit of sliver of yellow when you mask that so that you get no white space between any of your areas. Okay. No white gap. You don't want that at all. Okay. So let's go to our last video here. You can see I've dried this already fully, and then I've put on my tape. You can see the little sliver of yellow. This should, I think, well, I mean, this is cutting it close, but, you know, I think we'll be fine on here too. All right, and let's start that. Okay, we're going to do our 50-50 shade, give you the thumbs up. We have our cadmium yellow medium, our warm yellow, right? So we're able to start to already see those differences and how those two different yellows, you know, compare, right? The cool yellow and what it did when mixed with white and black, and the warm yellow and how it's responding to that same process, okay? So I have equal amounts of my yellow and, again, my black, quote unquote, right? You'll have a carbon black. I have a different version of that, actually called Payne's gray. It's a very, 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 very dark gray, and it works pretty similarly to black, but you'll have probably a little bit of a different result than I have here. And remember, we did speak earlier about, my guess is that your cool yellow 50-50 shade will be lighter. You know, it's going to look a little bit more like this does than my top shape does. Okay. So mix it thoroughly. Again, smash and scrape. Looks pretty good here. Put that to the side and then add a tiny bit of water. Tiniest bit. Okay, mix it through. You want to make sure that when you're adding water that it doesn't actually create any sort of transparency. Okay, any sort of transparency. If it does, then that's incorrect use of water. Okay, it's just to kind of, it's just the tiniest bit that you want to add. Okay, paint that in carefully. Really take your time. Again, we want to make sure we're filling those white gaps along the edge. Remember, you can try different directions in terms of moving, or you can kind of dab a little bit, but you just want to make sure that if you do that, you smooth out the surface as you go, as you can see that I am doing. Okay. And you can see fairly opaque coverage, really, you know, nicely opaque coverage. As we go, just about done. A couple little gaps there, maybe. All right, and then knocking down the edges with really light pressure on my of my brush onto the page. Really light, skimming, okay? And we're done. We're gonna go and again get all that paint out of our brush, blah, 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 blah. And then we're gonna take, again, right, take the tape off and dry. I think this last dry is important simply because then that really, you know, you can close up your sketchbook then, right? Without any of that paint coming off on the other page, right? And so I think that really helps. Also, since we're going back and we are repainting in this last square, one more time, right? That is important to make sure the other notation is dry. One thing that you will, even though again, your cool yellow will probably not need repainting or a second coat, you will definitely have some colors that probably will require a second coat. So this is useful to see this process anyway. It is important that the first coat be dry before going and adding this second coat, okay? So again, I don't have to mix this with anything. I'm just gonna put it out here, and it doesn't have to be a ton of paint, but it does have to be enough that you get good brush coverage. Yeah, okay. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I'm not using any water this time because I don't think that's helpful with this particular paint color. And if you have a real transparent paint, probably don't add water at all. And again, you can see how lightly, especially with your transparent colors, a much lighter touch is going to be really helpful in getting an opaque coverage, right? As opaque as possible. You can still see through it even at this point. This is a remarkably transparent color here. Okay, but the lighter your touch and the slightly more paint that you have on your brush, you will get a more opaque coverage. All right, so still going opposite directions just to, again, try to minimize brush marks. And I think I'm almost ready here, I think. All right, yep, just about. And again, craft, it's really important. I know this seems like, I mean, I do tend to be a little bit of a perfectionist. That doesn't mean that the result is going to be perfect, certainly, but I think that it is really important to really aim for trying your best to get a nice smooth surface. I probably should have stopped at an earlier point, but this is fine, right? I've got a good smooth surface here. I'm gonna unmask it now. And then I will want to dry it with my hair dryer. But, practicing really precise craft, the reason we want that is so that the color can really be seen and sort of be even and be true, and that we aren't distracted by poor craft, we're not distracted by uneven paint surface, or we don't get any transparency, which affects the outcome, our understanding of the color. We can go and clean up these little edges a little bit later here by scraping. When this is thoroughly dry, we can take the knife edge and very lightly, just kind of lightly and carefully with just the tip or the little tip edge, scrape that off, okay? And I think that's worth it to do. So anyway, all right.